be sure to reach out to our guy, Smitty, to get your corner rugs. You can see his corner rugs at the top level tournaments, including Ironman this year. Hit him up at Smitty43952 at Gmail. Go check out our partner, Spider Mat Tape, at spidermattape.com. It's the freshest mat tape in wrestling, manufactured this year and hasn't been sitting around in a warehouse. Once again, it's spidermattape.com. Limited rolls available. Once it's gone, it's gone. All right. Welcome back, Jake Elkins.
What's up, man? What's up, Jared? Glad to be back on, man.
Yeah, heck yeah. Where are we meeting you at today? You're driving, right?
Man, I've been on the road, so I'm down here in Niceville, Florida. Everybody showed up down here for these college duels. I couldn't be down here for day one, but day two kicks off here in about an hour, and so we're gonna go watch some good wrestling today.
That's awesome. That's awesome. How far from there are you?
Man, it's about 4 hours from the house on door to door. So yeah, it wasn't bad at all. I was planning on getting up at like 4 a.m. and driving down. And luckily, I looked at the schedule late last night and was like, "Oh, wrestling starts at 1. Got it." Like,
out there,
I'd have been so pissed. Yeah, I'd have been so mad at myself.
Yeah, so you're just about to jump in session 2, right? Day 2, about to jump in there. See,
yeah. Should be some really good stuff. Penn State's down here, Iowa, Virginia Tech.
What duel are you excited to see? The Penn State, Arizona State? What are you looking forward to?
Dude, I don't even know who's wrestling who in which round. I mean, I literally don't know. I'm just gonna go here and watch wrestling. I'm fascinated by like what is the tip of the spear right now in wrestling, right? And so because there's sort of a, I mean, these jokers are still, they're 18 to 22. I guess you got some older guys now with COVID stuff and
right.
triple red shirts, like
right.
a little younger, a little older now, but like, it's if you look at like grappling, world class, the best grapplers on the planet are closer to age 30, or even after 35 sometimes, which is crazy because you think you're past your peak or whatever, but they've had enough time to study the game. So this is the tip of the spear in America, right? But you're still talking about like how good is a guy at 22, let's say he's been doing it 10 years or maybe longer, right? But 10, 15 years, how good, so it's interesting. There's more to be learned past that, but how good are these dudes right now? What is considered, most people kind of consider whatever's happened here, like they're like, oh my God, I didn't even know that was a thing until they've seen it done, right? Some RBY jumps over somebody's head and they're like, what?
Nuts. Yeah.
So it's kind of fun to watch the fandom. And I honestly, as much of a wrestling guy as I am, I really consume less of it because I try to stay off on, I just said off camera, like in the laboratory studying the game myself. So if you're watching if you're too busy being a fan, you can't be innovating something new, so you kind of get off the
you
path.
Probably don't have much within a 4-hour drive, like NCAA level wrestling either, right?
Oh no, not at all. Yeah, if you're trying to watch some wrestling, you got quite a haul. I mean, UTC is like 2 hours from the house, Chattanooga, but I mean, I'll probably go watch the Southern Scuffle here in another week or so, week and a half. But I mean, I really don't go travel and watch duels very often ever.
Right. So you're gonna head in there. So you're learning, right? You're not going in there to be a fan, like you said. You kind of go.
Yeah, I mean, it's
back to your cave or whatever it is, and you kind of.
Yeah, it's fun I mean, there'll be lots of familiar faces in there, so hang out and high five some folks, talk to them, right? It's fun to hang out and do those things. I enjoy the social aspect of that,
right?
As much as anything. But if when the wrestling action happens, I'll be, I care less about who wins and more about like the art of what they're doing, which is silly in a way. But I was in we do an NCAA pick every year, and it's funny. All my buddies that in my area that coaches and everybody else, we do an NCAA pick at, draft your athletes and whatever. Right. And I usually lose the pool because I really don't know who's going to win. Like, I mean, there's certain people who,
the technique instead of the
result, like
right?
In your 7th round pick, I don't know if this guy is going to beat that guy. And they're like, you idiot, he beat him earlier in the season. I was like, oh, I didn't know, like, so that's all. It's almost shameful, but but I understand why, you know.
Right. You get pretty deep though in the technique, and obviously you're coaching, your Ironclad methods, right? And I mean that's what you
Yeah,
taught,
for
right?
sure.
Um,
Yeah, that's it.
so that's pretty cool. So what just going off topic a little bit, not really, I guess, but with this dual format, do you like it? So, what you've seen so far and the whole rock fin model thing, what's your take on
Man,
that?
I think it's cool. I mean, more eyes the better, right? I mean, I think that's cool. Yeah, I'm with it all. Like I don't know. Let the market decide. Like
You a big
I'm such
crypto
a
guy? You a big crypto guy?
yeah. I'm into all that stuff. Izzy was trying to get me deep into Rockfin stuff. We were in golly, not Sofia, Budapest. We're in Budapest this summer. And he was trying to talk me into the Rockfin tokens and getting in the game. I was like, we're gonna have to have a beer another time, and you can sell me on that. But I love the crypto space.
Gotcha. Cool.
Right now, all the markets are down though. I'm upside down.
Yeah, buy the dip, man. Buy the dip, right?
Yeah, dude. Yeah, it's time to. The problem is I bought in big right before it dipped. I was like, man, I think I'm gonna ante up again, and it went down. So it's fine. I'm still winning, but made me sad, broke my heart a little bit. Like
You're still young. You can hold, right?
yeah, it'll be just fine. It's gonna work out. You just can't be checking that stuff on the daily to break your heart, dude.
Right. Yeah. Well, they say what the volatility of crypto, like 10% is really like 1% of the
Yeah,
regular, the S&P or something. So people are going nuts over a 10% swing, but it's really, it's not that big
yeah,
of a swing. But
hundred
anyway, yeah, it'll
percent.
break your heart. Yeah, you're right though.
Yeah, you can't check it every day. Do you be like, it's down 8% today? You like look and you're up 5K in the evening, and you're like, man, that's dope. And then you look tomorrow and you're down 10. You're like, like
And
I
everyone's
lost
always
ten
on their
thousand
phone, so you're
dollars.
just hitting refresh.
Oh,
Yeah.
dude, it's like you're just sweating bullets. Like I put this away. I have to go do something productive.
Right. I
Um,
remember being at a tournament last year, right after the new year, and I think when Bitcoin took off, and someone said something there on Twitter. I checked, I'm like, holy, like it just went up past 30K or something. It was like, what's
yeah,
going on here? Like, but anyways, let's get back to wrestling.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah. You're good.
so you're gonna go in there and do kind of dissect the technique, and what do you just put notes on your phone then? Is that kind of from your mindset and your approach when you get in there? Do you put notes on what you're gonna take back to the club or what?
So I'm interested in like what tools guys are developing. Okay, so the premise is that no-gi jiu-jitsu is the future of folk style wrestling. Okay, like that's kind of the premise. Um, like the best grappler on the planet is a guy named Gordon Ryan that a lot of people know, but um, some people in wrestling know. If you're in the jiu-jitsu world, it's like knowing who LeBron James is. Like you got to know who Jordan Burroughs is. So the best grappler literally on the planet, wrestlers included, is a guy named Gordon Ryan. He had a match against Bo Nickel and like is embarrassing how bad he was on his feet because he's not he doesn't shoot takedowns, right? That's a whole nother thing. He learned the wrong way as well. Okay, but when they get on the ground, this guy's like an octopus, and so I really enjoy. I have a really good no-gi jiu-jitsu coach, Brandon McCatherine, and I really enjoy rolling myself because he kind of keeps you connected to wrestling, and our old bodies ain't trying to wrestle anymore.
Right.
If you asked me to wrestle, I'd be like, no,
No thanks.
like no chance. I don't even really want to drill, but jiu-jitsu is fun, and there's just a bunch of you learn to use. I talk about like trying to become an octopus. You learn to use like your knees and elbows and hips and your shoulders for like as tools, and so a big thing that when I'm watching folk style wrestling is like what tools are athletes learning to develop, you know what I mean? And I think Penn State's really fun to watch because I believe that they've got I haven't been in the room, but I see some things that are more fundamental ideas in jiu-jitsu that they're using and having some success with. But I mean, literally the tip of the spear out here is actually really far behind what it could be. There's just because that in wrestling alone, we kind of always focus on bigger, faster, stronger, right? Like just do it faster. And we don't slow down enough in time to learn. And that's really been a big outlier. It's that in Alabama, where I'm from, our athletes are going to have success pretty much regardless. There's not a lot of competition per se, right? For what we're trying to do. And so we've had more time to play in the laboratory and discover and play with these tools. And when you understand some new tool like a butterfly hook, right? In jiu-jitsu, butterfly sweep is a really common thing in jiu-jitsu. Well, like how does that apply? If this is a tool that you can use, how do you use this in wrestling, right? And so a really recent thing is Yanni D and Sammy Sasso wrestled, right? A couple weeks ago. And I think I saw on Flow, they had like a slow-mo breakdown of this crackdown position. Maybe you've seen the video. They did a slow-mo breakdown of this crackdown position. And the whole time, Sammy Sasso's on his butt and he has his left leg extended. And he's like trying to use his knee and like tip Yanni over, and they're wrestling back and forth. And if you understand those tools that you develop in jiu-jitsu, like I'm looking at the way they wrestled a crackdown, and I'm like, man, he screwed that up so bad. Like his heels are extended away from his butt. This and this, he should have been on a thigh pry. And if he'd used his foot, almost like if he uses his foot as an extra, he needed an extra hand. He needed an extra tool, but he didn't use his left leg at all. His left leg's like floating in midair. Imagine like when you watch a kid get pinned, and their legs are kicking up in the air like this, you're like, you idiot, why are your legs? Put your feet on the ground and bridge, or find or do something else with them, right? When you learn to use your feet like hands, that's what jiu-jitsu is. It unlocks completely new possibilities, right? The next adjacent possible. And so, yeah, that's a perfect example. Like I watched them wrestle a crackdown. I'm like, man, that's terrible. Yeah. And at first I thought I was a crazy person. I'm like, I'm a little too into the theory of this. Like, I don't think, how realistic is this? But it was really fun. So this crackdown position in general is a one that I really love. And I've had a lot of fun in like deep study of it, because in jiu-jitsu, you're sitting on your butt, right? You get really comfortable sitting on your butt. Well, in wrestling, you never do that, right?
Very rarely, not if you want.
Like, yeah, you ain't trying to be on your butt, right? The same way being on your back, you don't spend a lot of time on your back. Or how many hours in your career have you really spent pinning someone? Well, that's like, you might spend 30 minutes there today in a jiu-jitsu class, on your back in that position or on top of a guy. You can spend 30 minutes a day.
Right.
If you just went to your local jits class. And so those are positions that really get developed. You really hone those skills. And anyways, the crackdown is one of those that I've spent a bunch of time in. This summer, when I was at the World Team Camp with the cadets and juniors out in South Dakota, I got to talk to Frank Molinaro. And so I was like, Frank, come here, man. We were working with, he was drilling with Miles Shapiro, Meyer Shapiro, who won Cadet Worlds in freestyle. And in between, we stopped, and I said, Frank, I got to ask you a question. Like, you're a high crotch guy, like, you got a wicked lefty high C, right? Everybody kind of knows that. I was like, talk to me about this crackdown position. Like, what are you trying to do? Whatever, yada, yada. He was like, this. And I said, okay, well, like, what if I do this? And he's like, I don't know. That's freaking bizarre. Like, what is that? And so then we start playing through it, and I started talking him through like all these like lines of defense. And he was like, I mean, I don't know. That shit sucks. It's like, I've never seen that before, And I was like, well, look, I can't high crotch somebody, like I can't do this. I was like, but I understand, like, these are new tools and weapons. He was kind of like, yeah, where does that come from? Like, that's wild. He's like, I need to play with this, And again, Frank Molnar probably high crotch me, you know what I'm saying? But there was still merit to like the tools or whatever, right? And so that was honestly a really validating thing, because I thought, who knows more than me about this position, And I mean, that joker, if I was talking about someone who can hit a high crotch, like, he's one of the first names that comes to my mind, right?
Right.
And he was like, yeah, this is dope. Like, this is whatever. And I was like, well, go play with it, whatever. And so that, anyways, kind of connecting the two, study the game, go watch how these guys are doing it, and then figure out, like, what is the cutting edge now that we're seeing that everybody has eyes on, and then like, what's the roadmap to connect that to what is actually possible that people haven't seen yet. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that's kind of what I'm fascinated about.
So you mentioned you kind of go in your lab, you don't consume a lot, or what do you say? It would be like eating dessert all the time, right? But
Yeah, 100%.
but so what's the process? When you go in the lab, do you watch videos or something you go to? We had our DPS Dan Sweeney on a few episodes back. He's from Northeast Ohio here. He does a lot of jujitsu, sumo, and wrestling breakdowns. I'm not sure if you've seen his stuff, but it's awesome.
Yeah. I know who you're talking about. Yeah, it's super cool. Yeah,
Yeah,
I like came across some of his stuff randomly
yeah,
on social media, and I was like, oh, this is awesome. I love how he does this.
yeah. He's from
Um,
Cleveland up here.
I did
But
not know that. Okay.
anyways, like what's your process though when you go in the lab? You probably write some deep work, and you kind of just you got to like a dry erase, whiteboard. What do you do? Like what's the process of
Man,
how you break stuff down, or and then you
so
implement it, to Ironclad. How's that work?
so we one of the major tools is we invented this thing that sounds so weird to say invent something in wrestling, but so there's like four like major technologies that are kind of that make up what is I consider Ironclad methods. One of them is what I call the Ironclad Formula. Okay, and it's really if I was going to oversimplify it, it's triangle offense. Okay, so it's a system of triangles. I think we might have talked about this some in the
Right.
the
Yep.
last show we did, but it's a triangle with triangles on the corners, right?
Right.
And but there's a process for like refining that technique and like assessing. So you take like a way, let's say there's 15 questions or filters for techniques and positions that kind of strategize. It's kind of like if an offensive coordinator in football wrote down all the X's and O's and like how would they assess and evaluate the integrity of a play? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Well, against this defense, this or this, you know what I mean? And so we'll get in a position and literally like if I was going to write crackdown in the middle, and then we just start like walking through it all. I got to go to Newberry College and do this with some of my old teammates now who are the coaches there, and I spent one night. My buddy Bryant Blanton, he's national champ there, and he's a stud. We stayed up all night, and I was like teaching him about how this works and what we do, whatever. And we just wrote a position on the board and started walking down, and we were like, like sitting on the bed. I'm like, well, grab my leg, like here's how it works, and but you just slowly, I call it mapping a position, but just map a position. And what happens is you really discover the areas where you're inadequate at. You're like, well, what if I do this? What do you have an answer? And you realize you got like a whole triangle over here that you got nothing written in. You're like, I mean, yeah, if they do that, I don't know. I'll
Big
look for a
void, right?
stalemate, I guess. You realize that those are the times when you just hold onto the leg and wait for the referee to restart you, And so when you start, like, it's crazy because as soon as you just add, you're like, well, here's an option. If the guy goes this direction or gives you that defense, here's three options off of that and whatever. And like all of a sudden you're like, what? Like, I've been wrestling for 15 years and I didn't even realize I didn't have an answer for that. But now I have three answers. Like, you're like, where else can we do this? You're like, do that again, like, and it's pretty cool. Like you can quite literally see yourself getting better. You can quantify the progress, and so it's really fun to do individually. The challenge is how do you scale that and so, to a whole team, and I would say like teach them how to fish, right, instead
Right.
of catching fish for them or giving them fish, and so that's the challenge, and that's kind of what we're trying to do with all of our coaches education stuff right now is like, because this is the way, but it's just how do you like teach, because it's honestly a lot, man. It seems it's a lot when you go, well wait a minute, like
Right.
yeah, that's what we're trying to do.
Starting out, and you're like, where do I even start? Right? Because like you said, it's like a whole new perspective. It's like, all right, where do I
Yeah.
begin? Type thing. So you map all that out for the coaches, right? You have coaches courses and things like that, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
So
we call that a playbook. Like when you have an entire like system of triangles filled out, right? So like we have one from neutral that I call like the meat hooks playbook, and one from top, and we have one from bottom that's like bottom offense. How to get off bottom. And so anytime we just shot one for leg riding defense that I think goes online literally like today. I was talking to my media team while I was driving down today, but like when a guy puts gets legs in on top of you, like what are your options to defend? And so it's all mapped out, and it's like literally a playbook. If you play football, you have a playbook.
Right, right.
You know what you should and shouldn't do.
Oh, so most, if not all, have a playbook, right?
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. And so the thing to me, once you kind of see the way, you can't unsee it, right? I say this all the time. And so once you realize how primitive what we're doing, I mean, you're a wrestling coach, like we spend all of our time teaching technique. And so like the greatest filter for your athletes being good, and my athletes too, is what I know and then what I say to them, right? Like they have to come to me to get more of it. And then there's a lag when, like you said the same thing 100 times, like if you think about the blow ups that you ever have in practice, you're like, time, freeze, everybody sit down, like, listen, because you feel like you've said this 100 times, and little Jimmy over here, who's JV, and asked you the question, it's the first time he heard it, but you might have said it 10 times, but it's the first time that he really did hear, or he wouldn't have the question.
Right.
And so there's a lot, even if the coach knows it, there's all these lags to when the kids actually learn it or can do it and perform it. And then down the road from that is execute it in a competitive match. And then mastery, which they should really be pursuing, is like way down the road from that. Right.
Right.
And so, yeah, that's just like, how do we help those kids improve faster? You know what I mean?
Well, you talked about that off before we jumped on, but the bottom passive, what'd you call it? Because I mean, that's what a lot of people are at right now, right? Coming off COVID, they got a lot of newbies or kids that miss mat time, and like you said, we've all been there where we're like, "What do you mean? I've told you 20 times. How are you not?" Right? But we have a lot of new kids in the sport. But you talked off air about how you focus on the bottom, but go on.
Yeah. So if I could draw it, right, like imagine every coach has this dilemma where you don't have enough time and it's frustrating. So you kind of have to focus on the I'm gonna say the tip of the spear, the top little bit of the triangle, right? That's your varsity, right? And so you got your hammers on there, and everybody wants to coach their hammers because, like, what if you could just you could extend the tip of the triangle just a little bit, or top of the pyramid. You could just add a few blocks to this pyramid and get a little taller, to a new possibility, right? You could be the new best. Mm-hmm. That's where your state champs come from, right? If you're a high school coach, right? And then like right below the very point of the triangle is the rest of your varsity lineup, and that's where you have to spend all your time, because that's the face of your program. Like your competitiveness exists there. Those guys have to get your time. The at least the 14, 20, right? 16 to 20 guys that matter on your program. They have to have your time. And there's all these guys below that you feel a duty or responsibility to give time to, but like, it's hard because these guys require your time. So you spend your assistant coach is running around, if you're lucky enough to have one, with a lot of these developmental guys that are kind of the second tier, the like B group is how do these get, look, we need to help these guys and whatever, and they're in practice and getting something out of whatever else. And then there's like the bottom tier, I call it the C group. Okay. And a lot of them, you're like, they ask you a question and you're like, dude, like you just freeze and you're like, I need you to freaking get better so I can even help you. Like, I don't even know where to start. You know what I mean? And it's funny because it is like, it's not because you don't like this kid or they're annoying, right? A lot of times one of those kids is a freaking character and you kind of love him, but right. You're like, dude, you suck. You're terrible. Like, so bad.
Sometimes they don't even know how bad they are, right? I mean, they're
they
new,
have no
they
idea.
Don't know, or they're young, or but you gotta love them, right?
Yes, 100%. They're like the stray dogs on the team. You're like, dude, come here, bro. Like, they're kind of where your comedic relief comes from on your team, And so, but quite literally, like, you need them to get better so that they can even really participate. Like, you're like, dude, I can't even justify giving you my time right now because I need to go help Jimmy over here, who's gonna compete tomorrow, right? And if he beats the guy that he's got to wrestle, then maybe we could win the duel, right? Or and so you're just in this dilemma, and all at once, you just, I mean, again, you tend to kind of laugh. If every coach listening to this is going to be like, oh my gosh, yes, because they ask you a question and you're like, I don't even know what to say to you right now. I just need you to go there and
Every program has
ask
one
someone
or two
else.
or several, right?
Yeah. Okay. So those are the tiers, right? Well, the thing is, how do we take those kids? So everybody wants to focus on the tip of the spear, right? And that's what this out here. Everyone wants to flow. Everybody cares about these college dudes that are wrestling. Like, oh man, that's where all the fandom happens. That's where 80% of the eyes are, right? But and we were always trying to stack knee blocks on top of the pyramid and make it taller and discover new possibilities. But the greatest like improvement, the greatest like the room for the most progress is actually the bottom group of kids, right? And so because the idea is, how do I take these kids, if this kid's 5 years away from being good, how can I take these things he should be learning in 5 years and speed him up? What if he could learn this in a year or two? I always tell people for years I've been telling people when they come to our program, I'm like, listen, you really got to be in the program a year for this to even all make sense. Like, we got to make a whole lap around the track for you to even and have been exposed to all these skills, all these techniques, all the freestyle and Greco stuff that we're doing. And then it's going to kind of make sense. And honestly, in year two, you're going to get so much better in year one, but in year two, you're going to make crazy progress because you can even speak the language now. You're literate across all these positions. Well, why do they have to sit through 100 wrestling practices to become literate? Like, they should have a playbook. If little Jimmy, who sucks and I can't justify giving him any of my time right now, just wants to be better, well, he can't. Like, he needs me to help him get better, right? Or he can go watch all the wrestling content on YouTube and on TikTok, where kids are asking me ridiculous questions all the time on TikTok, right? Or he can go watch, if he's lucky enough to get a Flow subscription, and go check
stuff on there. And then what happens again is, I mean, Jared, you know this, like, those kids go watch all this crazy stuff that they found on the internet somewhere, and they want to come try to practice, and you're like, dude, what are you doing? Like,
Right.
Please don't do that again, right?
Right.
My headset. Can you still hear me good? My headset.
Oh yeah, still got you. Yeah, you're good.
Okay,
Man.
so
You hear me? You're right?
yeah, I got you. My headset died. I'm gonna put it this way.
Yep. No, it's so true though, right? I mean, it's so true, right? Like,
no,
after that 12 months though, they realize, okay, now I realize what I don't, right? They learn that what they didn't know, right? That first 12 months, sometimes they don't know what they don't know, right?
100%. And so the whole idea of a playbook is that little John, I'm like, hey, listen, man, I know you're motivated and you want to be good at this. You need to go study, but you can't have them. If they go watch somewhere on the internet, they're bringing back things that don't fit into your system, right? They're learning kind of the wrong things. Mm-hmm. Well, if you can what if you could give them in football that you hand them the playbook, go, hey, go learn these plays. And so now if we do call on you, like, you can be a contributing member of the team. What if the starting wide receiver goes down and we got to call on the B guy? Well, if you can line up and run the correct route and whatever else and catch a ball, you might not be 6'3" and run a 4.3 40, but you can do all the other things right, and you can fill in for the team. You're right. You can be a contributing member of the team, and when he graduates this year, you might be the guy as a sophomore or junior in high school. That's kind of what that looks like. I'm kind of jumping back and forth.
No, that makes sense.
Looks like in football.
It's so right. I think in wrestling, like you said, it's always bigger, faster, stronger. We just kind of have the mentality of work harder, and it's not study. Learn the process, learn what it takes. It's just, all right, let's just work harder. Let's go faster, right? And it doesn't always equate to getting to the finish line or getting even in the race sometimes, right? So
yeah, 100%. I mean, people we miss the ball so much there in wrestling. So technique beats power, timing beats speed, right? I mean, that's it. So why are we spending all of our time working on the power and the speed component, mm-hmm. or the conditioning factor? Like, it's an earth-shattering thing. But I was talking to which I heard this before, but then, like, when you're surrounded, so when I was in Sofia, Bulgaria in 2019, I'd already heard this idea once from a Russian guy or Eastern, European. But I heard this other guy say the same thing, and we're talking about being in shape and Americans working hard and being in shape, and the kind of the Dan Gable culture that exists, which overall is a good thing. I mean, I think it's a really positive thing, and I certainly believe in hard work, right? I know you do too. But he was like, well, he said, and I was basically asking why don't the Europeans take their conditioning more seriously? Like, why is that not a thing? And he was like, well, if I take you in the first period, like, it doesn't matter. Like it's like if I go up 6-0, like, good luck. I don't have to be in shape anymore. Like, good luck beating me. You know what I mean?
Right.
They were kind of like, it's not a conditioning contest. Like, it's a points contest. Like, you have to score more points. And if I'm better scoring points than you are, who cares who can run faster, or longer or whatever. And it was, he explained it in, like a Russian would, in like short, like, fragments. And you're just like, it almost made it like hit harder, like,
right. You're like, oh, geez.
really good answer. But yeah, I was like, okay. But and so that's like, there's this book, you need to read this book, you'll love it. I recommended this to a couple others, and they're like, dude, there's this book called the Perfect Pass. Okay. And it's really the core philosophy. So
Perfect
it's the
pass,
way,
like
the perfect pass, football pass. Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
So it's I'm sure you probably know who Mike Leach is. He's the head coach at Mississippi State now, but he really became famous when he was at Texas Tech and they beat Texas when Texas was the #1 team in the country years ago, right? That was in like maybe 08, I think. And so the book is about Hal Mumme, this crazy football coach, and Mike Leach, who was his assistant. Okay. And again, it's funny now because Mike Leach has rose to prominence. At some point, Hal Mumme was really successful too, and I think he kind of just fell off the wagon. Is crazy or whatever. I don't know what, I can't remember what his demise was, but but it's about, this book is about the revolution of football and the innovation of football. And there are offensive coordinators, right? And so if when someone asks me like, what's my forte, I'm like, I'm an offensive coordinator, like, for wrestling. That's what I probably do best. And so he talks about the way that they basically, the long story short is that football kind of is about the Jimmies and Joes, not the X's and O's. A lot of people will tell you that, especially about high school football. Wrestling is not about the Jimmies and Joes. It should be about the X's and O's. Okay. I think that made sense the way I said it. But in the sport of football, which is about the Jimmies and Joes, the personnel matter, right? You need big, fast, strong athletes. Okay. They started winning with like completely inferior athletes at all of these different schools, like from like West Texas 1A high school all the way through, I mean, they've coached at the highest level now. And they did it by reducing their playbook, simplifying it, and like improving their technique and working on their timing, right? Like, effectively, I'm kind of paraphrasing and
right.
and using our terminology, not theirs, but they made these very subtle innovations to the way that they ran routes or the way that they pass block, to their scheming, and they were beating teams that was like, this team beat us by 59 points. They beat us 59-0 last year, and then this year we beat them. And they're like, what just happened?
How'd that happen,
like,
right?
How do you, like, yeah, I mean, you have most of the same, 75% of the same kids on your team, and you won? Like, what? And it's a very fascinating book, and a lot of the ideas in there are the same things that I'm preaching. So it really, honestly, just, sorry for everyone else, it empowered me. So I'm like even more obnoxious talking about how important this stuff is now.
Oh, I love it.
But I was like, I'm not crazy. Like, these guys figured that out in football. And so if you can understand what's the parallel in football to wrestling, it's everything. And it's all about all of it is about how do you think faster, and how do you use technique instead of power, and timing instead of speed, to beat people. And it's again, there's very like subtle things like the timing on a route, or the specifics of the way you run the route was more valuable than having a really fast receiver or a quarterback who could throw the ball fast or whatever, or far or anything else. And so it's just really cool. So I spend a lot of time like studying football stuff. So I love listening to Nick Saban and Bill Belichick, and I love listening to Tom Brady. because the dude's 46 years old and somehow getting better at football. Like, it's insane.
It's so
You know,
wild,
like,
right?
I mean, seriously, how bad does he make us feel about ourselves, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, this joker's
Get out of
getting
bed.
better.
I'm sore. It's like, and then you hear that. It's like, geez.
Yeah, dude, it's insane. So, but he, like, the way that their minds think about the innovation of football, right, which is so nuanced already. Like, I get a lot from that in the way to innovate our training methods, or the way that we think about offensive, scheming, or studying I mean, basically, Tom Brady's just getting better at reading defenses and decision making. That's it, right?
His
I
arm's
mean,
not getting stronger.
no, he's
Faster.
not.
It's
He
not getting
can't.
faster, right?
Yeah, none of those things, right? He's just trying to, like, maintain physically as much as he can, but it's all about thinking faster, making better decisions, tactics. And so, um, I love listening to. I say I love. I mean, at one point I was listening to Askren talk a whole lot about, again, a lot of people love him or hate him, but
Right.
I was listening to him talk about, he's like, people are just so dumb. Like, why would you make that dumb decision out there wrestling? And it just cracks me up, because that's what, when you're watching a match, if you know what's up, you're like, he's an idiot. Why did that guy do that? And there's some things that are really obvious, like, why did he let him up with short time left, right? But like, hey, that guy has stopped. Like, he almost scored 3 times with a go behind, and then he decided to, like, take a bunch of shots on his leg in the third period, and got stuck underneath him and smashed and whatever else. Why didn't he go back to the well, snapping this guy down and trying to score with this freaking go behind, when you could get 100 attempts at it, and not burn the clock up? And
Right.
and so I just think there's so much room for improvement, and that's where the most room for improvement is. It's not in, I mean, how much better are you going to make this kid who's 16? You got a sophomore on your team. How much physically are you going to change him during 3 months of season, when he's limiting his caloric intake and competing all the time? Like,
Right.
you
That's where
probably
you're
ain't
gonna
going to
make the
change his
most impact. Right. I mean,
yeah, his physical prowess isn't going to change a whole lot in the next 90 days, but
Mhm.
we can revolutionize the way he thinks about wrestling, right? Which changes everything.
Right. No, that's a great point. No, I'm glad you brought that up, when we were talking, because that's right. I mean, you look at any program across the country, right? They're gonna have that, tip of the spear, and then their next, their contributors, then they have this, and especially coming off COVID, like I mentioned, right? And those are guys who
Yeah,
are going to need to contribute in a couple of years, right? Those are,
yeah,
you talk to any program, I think we've mentioned this before. I'm not sure with you, but wrestling's not track or swimming, where you just go out there, you can practice by yourself, right?
no,
You
no,
need a
it's not.
partner, right? And those guys at the bottom, they might not be contributing today, and the experienced guys may be looking down on them, but you're going to need them in a couple of years, right?
Yeah, you need a scout team, and eventually that's going to be your starting quarterback, the guy running the scout team over.
Right. Right.
Tom Brady's running the scout team. I mean, you need him in a couple of years. Like, that's
Any
such a
other
huge
sport?
thing.
Yeah. Any other sports you kind of take some things away from?
I really like to study baseball. So it's funny, I was a way better baseball and football player than wrestler at
Oh,
the
really?
point that I decided to not do those anymore and wrestle. It's like you're the starting quarterback for the high school football team, and you quit to wrestle. Like, what are you doing? And so I have kind of more of a mind for those. I've always thought in terms of those as it relates to wrestling, especially when I was trying to get better. Um, and so I really like to study baseball, because the mechanics are so they key in so much on the mechanics. And when I say mechanics, I mean, like, the micro technique, right? Like, the way that you grip a baseball. I mean, how many different variations are there of a fastball, just in the way you grip it, right? Um, and so they key on these crazy little mechanics and obsess over them. And in wrestling, we don't do that enough. Like, we kind of think of the gross motor skills, and not of the nuanced things, right? And I just think there's so much to be learned from that. There's a guy that I follow on TikTok. I hate to say that I'm all over TikTok, but we just are. And so
Right. Ironclad's blowing up on TikTok.
yeah,
I love
we're
it.
getting a lot of traction on there. So we just keep going to the well. But there's this guy, like swingman hitting or something. I don't know. It's this old, so baseball, America's pastime, right? Been around for forever. But baseball's going through this crazy revolution right now with hitting, and the way that people have hit for so long I mean, it's changed several times even in the last decade, but now there's this like completely different way of like the way they turn a wrist. I mean, it's like everything that I was ever taught about baseball and how to hit is like completely wrong.
Really?
But Aaron Judge, who's making hundreds of millions of dollars to hit baseballs, is like using this new way to hit. And a bunch of other pros are like going to this old man who used to own a storage building, like, and he just through logic and philosophy and like he guinea pigged his own son. His own son sucked at hitting, and he was trying to make him better, and his baseball coach was terrible. And he watched, thousands of hours of film, and he's like, we're gonna do it this way. Like, it just slowly whittled away until it got to like the way that he's doing it. And there's all these kids. I think he's in Michigan, I want to say, but it's like,
I don't know anything about baseball, so it's just something how he like snaps the wrist.
Or the way, so usually you like step and swing, load with your arms, and he's got this like, it's more like how when you watch softball players like slap hit.
Yeah.
It's more like that, but the guys are blasting balls 500 feet.
Oh, so they're still hitting it far. Okay,
no, they're still smashing it. Yeah, it's like, it's about like basically your hips the way I would explain it is your wrist becomes like the pinpoint. So instead of swinging around like the outside radius of a circle, and your bat speed being out there, the circle's a lot tighter. Yeah, everything's here, and so you really get more bat speed. It is, if I was oversimplifying it. And so he just aligned your body mechanics with the idea of tightening everything up, and it just, I mean, man, it comes around quick. And so you also get more time to read the pitch, because your swing is so much more compact. And so there's all these residual benefits of doing it this way, but it requires like faith, and you have to like understand the logic and go, if this is true and this is true and this is true and this is true, then this has to be the way.
When you got to be willing to commit, you're going to get worse before you get better.
Yeah, like you're got to screw this up for a minute. Yeah, like you got to figure out how to. It's just like getting a new tool. You get a new tool, and you got to figure out how to run this thing. You know what I mean? Like, you might mess some stuff up.
No, that's. But I'll have to check that out. I'm not a baseball guy. My brother's a big baseball guy. I have to see what I have to run it by him. See what see.
It's crazy. I mean,
obviously it works. Like you're saying, the big names.
And I honestly, like, again, because I love picking up people who are training baseball players and stuff, and I mean, there's a huge prize to be the best baseball player or the best football player, right? So there's a whole lot more training science and a whole lot of people who are motivated to innovate.
Right.
And yeah, so you can pick up things from those a lot, right? And I love, again, I study that way more than I do the way anybody's doing anything in wrestling.
That's sweet. Well, thanks, man. I know you got to get into a duel. Do you have anything else before you jump off here? I know you drove all that way. You better get in.
Yeah, sorry. Right?
You don't want to talk to me and miss out. I think you're muted there. What's that?
Hey, I'm sorry. My everyone's trying to call me here. Yeah, they're trying to send me inside. They're like, "Hey, are you here?"
Yeah.
Dude, man, that's sorry. Yeah, I just kind of was like vomiting all this stuff.
No, you're good, man.
Man, I hope that some of that helps, like
100%.
kind of put people on the journey. There's a lot to be learned, dude. There's the future of wrestling is bright, but it's just time for some innovation, man. And we wrestlers more so than maybe anybody hate change. We're kind of like, this is the way you got to do it. Like, get tougher, and
we did this 20 years ago this way. We're still doing it. It's like, no, that's not how the world works.
There's things called concussions now that we've learned a lot about.
Right.
We've learned a lot about nutrition since then. So we're gonna try this new way that's a little better. So anyways, man, hey, I just want to say, Jared, I appreciate what you're doing here, man. I love the Wrestling Philosophy Show, and I've picked up a lot of little things from some of your guests and stuff that you've had, and so we have similar visions in trying to share information and make this thing better. And I really appreciate you having me on, man. It's again, I love what you're doing, and so I just really appreciate that.
Thanks for taking the time today. Thank you.
Yeah, man, I enjoyed it. Good luck at practice. Go get after them young bucks. Go help your little Jimmies.
Yeah.